There is a discrepancy in the Lakewood Central Terminal archives that nobody has been able to explain. Between January and December 1902, passenger manifests show 120,847 arrivals at the terminal from westbound trains. During that same period, departure records and connecting route documentation account for 83,214 passengers leaving the terminal. The difference is 37,633 people who arrived at Lakewood Central but have no documented exit. The terminal's official report for 1902 lists total annual passenger traffic as 83,214, matching only the departure count and making no mention of the arrivals. I found this while researching railway operational efficiency during the early industrial period. I was examining how major terminals managed passenger flow during peak travel years. Lakewood Central Terminal, the largest railway hub in the Midwestern Republic during the early 1900s, processed hundreds of thousands of passengers annually. The terminal kept meticulous records: arrival logs, departure logs, platform assignments, ticket sales, and transfer documentation. But the 1902 records don't reconcile. The arrival manifests are preserved in the Midwestern Railway Company archives. Each manifest lists the train number, origin station, arrival time, and passenger count. The manifests were completed by train conductors and submitted to terminal authorities upon arrival. For 1902, I counted 847 westbound train arrivals, with a total passenger count of 120,847. The departure documentation, combining outbound manifests, connecting route transfers, and local destination tickets, shows 83,214 passengers leaving the terminal during 1902. The gap is precise. 37,633 passengers arrived, but have no recorded departure. The official explanation appears in the terminal's annual report submitted to the Railway Commission in January 1903. The report states that Lakewood Central processed 83,214 passengers in 1902, representing a 12% increase over 1901. The report makes no mention of arrival counts, only final passenger traffic figures, based on departures and transfers. Reasonable. Terminals measure traffic by departures. Arrivals and departures should match in a functioning system, but perhaps some discrepancy is normal due to record keeping inconsistencies or passengers who arrived but didn't formally register departures. Except the discrepancy is too large to dismiss as administrative error. 37,633 is nearly 1/3 of the total arrival count. Here's what strikes me about the pattern. I broke down the 1902 arrival manifests by month. January through May showed relatively normal reconciliation. Arrival counts approximately matched departure documentation with minor variances of 2 to 3%. June showed a larger gap. July through December showed increasingly severe discrepancies, with September recording 4,892 more arrivals than departures. Something changed in the summer of 1902 that affected how passengers were being documented, or how they were exiting the terminal. I searched for operational changes during that period. Terminal records show that in June 1902, Lakewood Central began a major expansion of its eastern wing. The expansion added 4 new platforms and a secondary exit corridor designed to handle increased passenger flow. Construction continued through December 1902. During construction, passenger routing was modified. Arriving westbound trains were directed to temporary platforms. Passengers disembarking from these trains were channeled through the construction zone to reach the main terminal building. Signage directed them to follow a marked corridor. The marked corridor exits are not documented in the departure records. I found construction permits for the Eastern Wing expansion dated May 15, 1902. The permits authorized the temporary corridor and specified that it would remain in use until the expansion was completed in January 1903. But there is no documentation of how passengers using that corridor were logged or counted for departure purposes. Now here is where the timing becomes difficult to explain. The discrepancy in passenger counts begins exactly in June 1902, the month the construction started and the temporary corridor opened. Before June, arrival and departure counts reconciled normally. After December 1902, when construction ended and normal routing resumed, the reconciliation returned to normal variance levels. For 7 months, while passengers were routed through the temporary corridor, the arrival-departure gap existed. Then it disappeared. I tried to find the construction records for the temporary corridor. The Railway Commission required terminals to maintain daily logs during construction projects, documenting safety protocols and passenger routing procedures. I found construction logs for the Eastern Wing expansion showing materials used, worker schedules, and safety inspections. I found no logs documenting passenger flow through the temporary corridor, no count of how many people used it, no procedures for logging their exits, nothing. But here is the detail that doesn't fit. I found a memo dated August 1902 from the Lakewood Central Terminal master to the Railway Commission inspector. The memo responds to an inquiry about passenger count discrepancies. It states, westbound arrival counts include all passengers disembarking at Lakewood Central. Departure counts reflect passengers utilizing standard terminal facilities and documented transfer services. Passengers exiting via auxiliary routes during construction are not included in standard departure documentation, but are accounted for in facility usage estimates. The memo acknowledges that some passengers were not being included in departure counts. It states they were accounted for in facility usage estimates. But I found no facility usage estimates in the archives. No supplementary documentation. No reconciliation showing where those auxiliary route passengers went. The Railway Commission apparently accepted this explanation. The 1902 annual report showing only 83,214 passengers was approved without noted objection. I searched for complaints or inquiries from the public. If nearly 38,000 people arrived at a major terminal and weren't properly documented leaving, someone should have noticed. Missing persons reports, family inquiries, business travelers whose arrivals were recorded but whose destinations couldn't be verified. I found 3 letters in the Railway Commission files from late 1902. All 3 mentioned difficulty tracking the arrivals of expected passengers. One letter, dated the 12th of October 1902, is from a manufacturing company inquiring about employees sent to Lakewood for training. The letter states that 10 workers were confirmed to have boarded a westbound train, and arrival manifests show they reached Lakewood Central, but the workers never appeared at their assigned lodging and cannot be located through terminal transfer records. The Railway Commission's response, dated the 20th of October, states that the terminal was undergoing construction and that record keeping for auxiliary routing was managed separately. The Commission suggested the company contact the terminal directly. There is no record that the company received a response from the terminal. But here is what bothers me most. I found platform assignment records for westbound arrivals during the construction period. The records show which trains were directed to the temporary platforms and routed through the construction corridor. Between June and December 1902, 184 trains were assigned to temporary platforms. I calculated the passenger counts from manifests for those 184 trains. The total was 37,411 passengers. The discrepancy between total arrivals and documented departures for 1902 was 37,633. The numbers align almost perfectly. The passengers who were routed through the temporary construction corridor are the passengers with no departure documentation. I tried to find the location of the temporary corridor. Construction blueprints show the Eastern Wing expansion, but don't detail the temporary routing path. I found one reference in a June 1902 inspection report that mentions temporary passenger corridor established through Eastern Basement section pending completion of upper-level platforms. The Eastern Basement, a section of the terminal normally used for freight and maintenance, repurposed during construction to move passengers from temporary platforms to the main building. I searched for basement facility maps, The terminal's architectural plans show the basement layout as of 1900. The eastern basement section includes freight sorting areas, boiler rooms, and maintenance storage. There are 3 exits from the eastern basement, one leading to the main terminal building, one to the freight loading docks, and one to an external street level exit on the eastern perimeter. The external exit opens onto Millwork Street, a service road behind the terminal used primarily for deliveries. I tried to determine if the temporary corridor used that external exit. If passengers were being routed out through the eastern basement to Millwork Street instead of through the main terminal building, they would bypass all standard departure logging systems. They would exit the terminal property without being counted. But why would a passenger routing corridor direct people to a service exit instead of the main terminal, especially business travelers and families who would need to arrange onward transportation, collect luggage, or access terminal services? I found one more document that I haven't been able to explain. It is a maintenance requisition dated July 1902 requesting additional lighting and signage for eastern basement corridor. Passenger volume exceeds initial projections. The requisition was approved and fulfilled in early August. The maintenance staff knew the basement corridor was handling significant passenger volume. They requested improvements to accommodate it, yet no system was in place to count or document those passengers. The temporary corridor operated from June through December 1902. During those 7 months, approximately 37,000 passengers arrived at Lakewood Central Terminal and were directed through a basement passage that exited onto a service street. No documentation of their route, no logging of their exit, no records of where they went after leaving the terminal. The Railway Commission accepted the terminal's explanation that these passengers were accounted for in facility usage estimates that don't exist in any archive. The company inquiring about 10 missing workers was told to contact the terminal directly and apparently received no response. And when construction ended in January 1903, normal passenger flow resumed. Arrival and departure counts reconciled, and the discrepancy disappeared. The 1902 arrival manifests are preserved in the archives. 120,847 passengers documented as arriving at Lakewood Central Terminal. The departure records show 83,214. The difference was explained as a temporary record, keeping anomaly during construction, the auxiliary route, the facility usage estimates. But 37,000 people were directed through a basement corridor to a service exit, and nobody officially tracked where they went.